Good day, everyone. My name is Alexis, and I'm very happy to be here with you. I want to welcome you to our webinar today. It's going to be a great session with Guillermo Mendoza from the US. Before we start, I'd like to check or double check if everyone can hear us and if you can see the screen. So if you could please raise your hand on the application, there's a little hand. Okay, I'd like to see that, you can hear as well and you can see the screen. If somebody else could please raise their hands. Okay, I see many hands. Good, great. So I'm going to encourage you to ask any questions you have during the session. There's a little question icon on the application. You can just click there and write your questions or comments as the topic advances. And at a certain point, Guillermo will be answering your questions and your doubts. So without further ado, I'm going to leave you with Guillermo Mendoza. Guillermo, thank you for being with us and welcome.
Thank you, Alexis. Well, good afternoon for those in this side of the world, and good evening for those in Europe. I'm very happy to be here presenting today. And as you read in our invitation today, it's about how to manage your session structure for maximum impact. As part of what we do in Impact Coaching Solutions, as you know, I am one of the ICC trainers, so we train professional coaches. And at some point of the program, we like to teach our participants, future coaches, to understand that the best impact with your clients is when you have an organized session and you have some structure that you follow to create the best insights, the best exploring with powerful questions, and also the best outcomes from the session in terms of what your clients are getting from the session. So my goal today is to review with some of you professional coaches what you need to do before the session, during the session, and after the session, and especially during the session, what is the best structure to create maximum impact with your clients. If you are not a professional or certified coach, this presentation is also useful. I have taken actually this information on the structure for a coaching session, and I have incorporated that in the leadership development programs that we offer to our clients in Impact Coaching Solutions. And basically, it's a 3-day program. It's like a mini certification where we don't aim to certify managers as professional coaches, but we teach them how to use some coaching skills when they work as managers and leaders in their organizations. And one of the key skills that we teach them is precisely this: how to have a coaching conversation structure. Because as manager or leader, you might give a lot of feedback, a lot of powerful questions, use your coaching skills in the hallways, in your meetings, etc. But at some point, it's also a useful tool to use in let's say a one-on-one meeting, the famous checkpoint where we meet one-on-one with a collaborator, maybe once a week, once a month. And in that session, we go over how they are doing, what was the result for the last month, what are the key priorities for next month, etc. And in those conversations, it's very useful also to have a coaching conversation structure to help people develop faster. So that's the goal for today. Let's start with some ideas here. First, when we talk about preparing for your coaching session, the things that you need to do before the session. Well, we teach our students in the certification process that a lot of what you get from coaching schools and tools and books and training is just a little part of what you bring to the table as a coach. As a coach, we say that your client has 50% of responsibility for the results and you have 50% of responsibility for the results. So it's half and half. Now, from your half, your tools and techniques are only giving you 10%. The majority of what you bring to the table as a coach, the other 40%, is basically your presence. And by presence, we mean being able to offer our clients a session where we are fully present and helping them in the best way. So in order to do that, I always think that before the session, one of the things that we need to do is what is called centering, developing mindfulness. And the best definition I have found about mindfulness is presence and acceptance. That means is being here, not in the past, not in the future, not worried about my last session that I just finished, or not worried about all the things that I have to do in the afternoon, but just being present in the here and now. And then acceptance. And acceptance means quieting my internal dialogue, being able to get rid of my definitions and all the models that I have in my mind and ideas, and just be present for whatever my client is bringing, whatever he or she tries to do in that session. So that's mindfulness, being present and accept whatever comes. And to cultivate mindfulness, the best tool, the best recipe is meditation. I am always insisting a lot about meditation as a great way to increase our capacity for attention, for active listening, for being focused on something in a long period of time, and of course for being present and acceptance whatever is happening. Meditation is just to realize that our mind has the capacity to observe its own thinking. Our mind can observe our mind, and that's a very powerful thing that no animal can do, only humans, and that we can use to create reflection and to be aware at all. At this moment, I'm getting ideas from the past, or I am worried about the future. So just stop, get my mind back to the present. The easiest technique that we have heard many times, there are many techniques for meditation, and all of them are very good. You need to define what is good for you. But the one that is very popular is the basic meditation from Tibetan Buddhism, which is called shamatha. And shamatha is just watching your breath, just inhaling and exhaling and keeping your mind focused only in the movement of the air, getting into your lungs, out of your lungs. And anytime you catch yourself distracted with some idea from the past or from the future, or a noise or something, just gently ask your mind, no, forget about that. Just go back to watching the breath, to watching the air. And that's the best way to start cultivating mindfulness. Now, this is not just right before your session. To be a mindful person and to be a better centered person, you need to practice meditation every day. Start with 5 minutes a day, and then your mind and your body will allow you to have maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And if you do that every day, you will increase your capacity to stay focused on just watching something. So the same way that you just watch your breathing when you are meditating, when you are in a coaching session, you want to be able and have that capacity to just watch your client and just observe body language, verbal expressions, non-verbal expressions, what is the most important for my client, and being really present there. And that's what brings the highest benefit to your clients. So the first thing is centering. That's very important. The other thing that I do on top of centering or getting ready mentally for my session is to review my past session notes. If this is not my first session, I have a system. Some coaches have a notebook, some coaches have Word files. I am using a tool where I keep my notes from every session and I share them with my clients. So the first thing that I do before starting a session is spend a couple of minutes or 5 minutes just reviewing my notes from the past session, so I can refresh in my mind what were the learnings, what were the discoveries in the last session, because maybe we meet two weeks ago or last week, but maybe we meet 1 month ago or 1.5 months ago. So I need to review what were the previous learnings, where we were. And then also I need to review my notes on the committed activities. What are the commitments that my client made with me in the last session that he was going or she was going to do? That's very important, because as we move in a minute to the coaching and conversation structure, one of the first things that I do is review the past activities. So I need to review in my notes what is that I am going to review. And then the third one and last one is be punctual. I try to be just 1 minute, a couple of minutes before the session with my point 1 and my point 2 already done. So I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm ready to review my session for my client, and with my tools ready. What I mean by having your tools ready is, well, relevant client information. Maybe I need to have already open in my computer the 360 that my client did, or an assessment on emotional skills or communications, or my notes from his manager, or some personal notes. So all the information that is relevant to the client and that you might need to refer to during the session should be available for you, either with open applications or your notebooks open in the right page, whatever you need so you are ready for your client. So these are the things that you need to do before the session. Now, the things that are necessary once you are ready for your session, well, you start, and then during the session, before we get into the structure, I always recommend our future coaches that the most important thing to continue with this mindfulness and with this presence to the client is to plant some seeds in their brain, to plant some mindsets, some attitudes that are important when we are dealing with a coaching client. And these mindsets are, well, first, to remember myself that the questions are for my client, not for my curiosity. In some occasions, we might get trapped in the idea of, oh, that's an interesting story. What happened before? What happened after? Get me more details about it. But I need to catch myself and notice that those questions are useful for me because I'm curious as a coach, but they're not useful for my client. Another good rule that I have for powerful questions is if the question you ask your client is easily answered, then you are not causing any reflection because the answer was already in the mind of your client. The answer was already ready to give it to you. Powerful questions, if you are asking powerful questions, are questions that are for your client and that are for causing reflection, causing insight. You know that the good sign when you are doing a powerful question is because your client says, oh, good question. Like saying, I haven't thought about that. I have to think about it. Then I know as a coach that I'm doing a powerful question. Every time my client says, oh, good question, or wow, I didn't thought about that, or let me think, or well, I don't know. That is the sign that I am doing powerful questions and that they are for their benefit, not for my benefit. The second important mindset or attitude is that I need to work, and we are going to see that in a minute. I need to work at the beginning of my coaching session structure to help my client define what is the goal for the session. What do you want from this session? Because all my behavior as a coach, all the tools that I'm going to use, all my questions are going to be directed to achieve that for my client. That's why this step is very important. The other mindset I set myself with before starting or right at the beginning is that I am with the most interesting person in the world. Some of us have a problem of deficit attention, or we are just overwhelmed with activities and pendings during the day. We have too many things to do. Our mind is jumping all the time, and we get easily distracted with our internal dialogue, or we get off track if what the client is saying is not interesting, or for different reasons. So a good idea in my mind is always thinking, this person in front of me, my client right now, for the next 20 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever my session is lasting, these minutes are my unique opportunity with the most interesting person in the world. So I need to devote all my attention. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss any verbal or nonverbal expressions, signs. I want to see where his or her eyes are going and the expressions in the face. I don't want to miss anything. That's what I get from planting this idea in my mind that I'm with the most interesting person in the world. And then the other thing that I remind myself as much as possible is I don't have the definitions or the answers. My client is the one that has the definitions or the answers. So when my client says, I want to work on simplifying my work or simplifying my life, in my crazy head, I have a definition of simplifying, but I never should assume as a professional coach that I understand what is simplifying. Because even when it's a common word, even when we know that it's taking things from complex to simple, it can have several colors, several degrees of black and white and gray, and I need always to clarify definitions. So we know as professional coaches that the best question that I can do right after my client states something is, what does that mean for you? So if my client tell me, I want to work on simplifying my work, okay, tell me what does simplifying your work means for you? Because I know that is different from my definition. So I keep reminding myself as a professional coach, I don't have the definitions. I need to ask always for the definitions from my clients. And I also, of course, don't have the answers. So I am not going to provide advice or lead my client with my questions. I'm going to help her or help him to the best of my abilities to come up with their own answers. That's what I do as mindsets before starting. Once we start, then we get into what we call the session structure. And the session structure has three main areas. I need to start my session, I need to have my coaching conversation, and then I need to close my session. And good coaches have their structure to do certain things when they start, certain things where they close, so they maximize the impact. And that's the purpose of our presentation today. I want you to maximize your impact with your clients, and the best way that I have found to maximize that impact is by having certain things that I do always at the beginning and at the end. So let's start from the beginning. When we start our coaching conversation, the first thing that we need to do is to establish rapport. And to establish rapport, the most important thing again is I need to know my client. There are several tools in the market like the personalities profile, DISC profile, insights. There are many tools that maybe some of you know where they classify people in 4 colors depending on their preferences for communication styles and personality. Those tools are useful. If your client has done one of those assessments, it's a great way to understand what is her or his preference in terms of communication. And then that helps you a lot as a coach to establish the right level of rapport. But if you don't have that tool, just observe your client. Just be very aware of what type of client do I have. Do I have the type of client that is coming to the session thinking, let's get to work. What is the idea? How are you going to help me? I don't want to talk about the weather or my family. I just want to get to work. But then you might have other clients that are more on a social personality, that they are not going to be comfortable until they talk a little bit about, hey, you told me about your vacation. How was it? Or you told me about your dog that was sick. How is your dog doing? Or what happened with your daughter's graduation or whatever. So some clients need more, let's call it superficial or common conversation before getting to the point. And it's important for me as a coach that I need to calibrate the right amount of casual conversation that is going to help my client to feel comfortable, because that's my goal with the first part of the coaching structure. Establishing rapport means I need to create a comfortable environment for our conversation. And the way to create that comfortable environment, well, we have some techniques like the way I position the chairs and how do I sit, and we have some techniques on body language. But there are also other techniques in terms of the verbal language, and that's related to understanding, okay, how much I need to chat with this client before we get to work, before we get into the real topics that we want to touch. So be aware of your client style, adapt to that, because you might have any of those styles. And if you have a style that you go to the point very fast, then you are going to feel very comfortable with those types of clients. But you are not going to feel comfortable with a client that wants to chat a lot before starting. And you need to force yourself to adapt to that. Or the other way around, if you are the type of coach that are very social, you talk a lot about things and topics on life before getting to the point, then you are going to feel uncomfortable with somebody that wants to get into the point. But you need to adapt that, reduce the amount of conversation that is more natural for you, and adapt to your clients so you are creating the most comfortable space for that person. So that's what we have about establishing rapport. Then once I establish rapport, and that can take from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, you need to see how do you work with that in your session. But then the next thing, if this is not your first session, is to review what has been done with the previous commitments. You establish some activities, you establish some commitments with your client, and you need to review what happened with that. So basically, you have 3 outcomes with your client when you are reviewing activities or tasks or homework, however you want to call it. The first one is that the client says, I didn't do it. He failed to carry out, he forgot, or he didn't have time, etc. The second outcome is that he said, I did it, but I wasn't successful. And the third outcome is that says, I didn't, and I was very successful. So those are the 3 possibilities. Now, if my client says, I didn't do it, I forgot, or I didn't have time, then I need to start exploring with some questions. What happened? What was the reason for not doing the activities? What was the reason for not carrying out the activities? And understanding how can I help my client to work with this again? Now, the key question that I ask with clients when this happens is, after I explore what were the reasons for not delivering the results, or for not committing to the actions and doing them, and my question is always, is this still relevant for you? Is this still an activity that is good for you? Because maybe that it was relevant 1 month ago when we met, but now maybe this homework has no value for you or no use, or there is no reason to do it, or maybe you replace it with other things. So a key question is this still relevant for you? Do you want to keep this activity as something that you will do until we meet again, as your new commitment? And if they say, and in some cases, some clients, they say, no, I don't need it anymore. But if the client says, yes, I need it, it's still relevant, I want to do it, then I need to work with my client to establish some structure and test the commitment. I did a big mistake as a beginner in my first coaching sessions after I got certified, that when a client was not ready with the homework, I said, well, is this still relevant? Yes, okay, well, try again, we'll see it next time. And next time was the same result. And then I said, well, okay, it's still relevant, yes, try it. And the third session, same result, until I realized by not being a good coach at the beginning, that it was Albert Einstein's definition of craziness. I was trying to get different results with the same actions, and that's not going to happen. So I learned that I needed to change something in the homework, in the commitment, so my client would have better chances of doing it this time. So I work with my client on structures. I explain the concept of the structures, and I tell them, okay, what would be a structure that will remind you that you have to do this, or that will create a space for you? What are how are we going to confirm that you have a commitment to get this done? I don't want to come again 1 month from now and find out that you didn't carry it out. How do we make sure that this time it is going to happen? So that's very important when you go on that route. Now, the second route, when my client says, I did it, but it didn't went right, or I didn't have success, or it was not what I was expecting, or whatever bad result that they qualify as a bad result. The most important from the coaching perspective is the learning from trying. So my coaching questions are going to be around of, okay, what did you learn from trying that activity? Even when it went wrong or it didn't give you the result that you wanted, what did you learn from trying? What was your experience? What did you learn from that? What can you apply for the next attempt or for the next time that you want to work with something like this? And maybe you can redesign the task, help your client to create a different task with the same intention, and then have it as a future commitment for the next session. And the next option is that the client did it and he got good results. And it's very common when the client says, I did it and it went great and I got my results. It's very common sometimes to forget that we need to reinforce the learning. So when my client says, I did my homework, I had that difficult meeting and it went great, and they tell me the story and why the homework was done with a very successful outcome, then I start coaching and asking, okay, and what did you learn from that? What did you learn from this being easier than you were expecting, or from having a good outcome, or from the reaction of this person? Or what did you learn from doing your homework and having this good result in what you're telling me? And then you can acknowledge all those learnings, reinforce them, integrate them as part of the process. You are creating building blocks that are going to booster your client's self-confidence and helping him to have more tools for the future challenges. So it's very important to reinforce that part. So this is what I do at the beginning, right after the report. Okay, how was the result with your activities? And based on that, well, we spend some time here, and then we move to the next part. Now, the next part of the structure, well, I said already this, the activities review, the most important is the learning, use powerful questions, and never define it the same way if it was not done. If they are going to try again, you need to change something, otherwise you are going to get the same result. Then we move to what in the structure we have as the sessions goal. And that's something also that new coaches, beginners sometimes forget. They just start coaching and they just start asking powerful questions. And it's very powerful and very useful for the client, but they don't define what is the goal for the session. And I think this is one of the most critical aspects of your coaching conversation structure, that right after reviewing the homework or the previous commitments, you need to ask your client, okay, what do you want to take out of this session? What is what you're expecting to achieve today? And actually, when I have my intake session, when I have my first session with my client, I always tell them, the first session, I have a goal as a coach. And the goal is that you understand what coaching is, how we are going to work, what are the expectations from both sides, what are our commitments, etc. But from my second session and after my second session, you are the one that is going to establish the goal for the session, not me. I'm always going to ask you at the beginning of the session, what are you going to want to take with you from our conversation today? And you are going to define that. So this is a very, very important part of the structure. I think it has been very, very successful for me because it has two important consequences of working with this. Number one, if I define with very, very, very accurate, what do I want from the session, then my mind is going to work on that. As a coach, I will use tools and powerful questions and different things that are all focused on getting that goal for my client. Second thing is that I will use this at the end of the session to confirm with my client that he or she got what he was looking for. And that is going to reinforce what we call the return on investment. That is going to make sure that my client is happy because he said, well, I paid for this session, but I got what I wanted. So it was a useful thing. It was a good investment. That is very important for you to create returning clients and to create satisfaction in your customers. So one important aspect before we move on helping your client define your goal is to make it in a way that is realistic and clear. If I have a client that says, well, my goal today is to make a decision on this problem. If I know the problem and I know that this is an achievable outcome in the next 45 minutes, then I can accept that as a goal. And I said, okay, let's work on that. Let's work on all the necessary things so you can make a decision at the end of the session. But if that's not realistic, I need to create a goal that is realistic because I need to deliver on that as a coach. So I can say, well, are you sure that is realistic? Are you sure that you will have enough information to make the decision right now in the next 40 minutes? Or our session might be about creating a very good brainstorming on your final options, or about evaluating your final options, or about defining what is the process that you need to come to the final decision. So make it something that you can deliver as a coach in those 45 minutes that you have remaining. And I'm talking here about 1 hour sessions where maybe you spend the first 15 minutes with Rapport and reviewing the past activities. And now you start with a goal, maybe when you are in minute 15, minute 20 is when you define the goals for the session. Sometimes even half session is when I define it. But it's important to define it because that will regulate the rest of your session. Then you have the middle of the structure. And the middle of the structure, what we call the coaching conversations, is, well, coach, this is where you use your tools, your powerful questions, your reframings, your formats, your wheels. This is when you use all your toolbox, helping your client the best you can. And I used to, some time ago, I used to give our students some guidelines on, okay, maybe you spend X amount of minutes here, X amount of minutes here. But I think that's not very good because this is very, very different in each session, depending on the context, depending on the problem, depending on the client. Times are going to change a lot. So what I do as a personal practice, instead of expending X amount of time in each part of my structure, is I just start with my rapport, my review activities, my coaching, and the only thing I'm checking in my watch is when I have about 10 minutes remaining. Because when I have about 10 minutes remaining, I know that I need to move to the last part of my structure, which is the closing. Depending on the client and the context, I might need 5, 10, or maybe 15 minutes for my closing. So that's the only thing I'm worried. I let my clients talk. I let my clients explore themselves, find their insights. I keep coaching. I keep asking, but I also keep an eye on my watch. And if I notice that I have 15, 10 minutes remaining, that's when I said, okay, I need to move to my closing. And when I move to my closing, there are some things that are needed in that last area of the session. The first one is I need to help my client define the next activity. I need to establish the commitments, the new homework, the new task that my client needs to commit to do for the next session. So for that, the question is very simple. Once we have been chatting and talking about what they want to improve, then I said, well, with all this information that we have covered today, with everything that we have done today, what do you think are good activities that you can commit to until we meet again? What are the things that you could do with all this information to move this forward until we meet again? So I help my client define his or her own homework with a question like that. And for those of you that have heard me before give presentations or classes, I talk also about 3 levels of questioning. I always tell that we should always, as coaches, try neutral. And neutral is, what are the activities that you might do? So I'm not giving any advice, I'm not giving options, I'm not giving any clues. I'm just asking, what are the activities that you think that you could do? And it's a completely neutral question. If my client is stuck and that's not helping him or helping her, and I try several times with a neutral questions or different variations of a neutral question, then I move to what I call the second level, which is more like a buffet or options, where I said, okay, from what I understood about what you want to improve, I think you could do this, or this. I can give him maybe 3, 5 different options of activities that they could do. And when I do that, I invite my client to pick one or several of those. Okay, these are some things that you could do. Do you think that one of those things would help you? One of those things would serve you? And then my client, in occasions, they say, yeah, that's one thing that I could do. That would help me. Or in some cases, they say, you know what? From your options, no, I don't think those would help me. But now listening to you, I know what is my activity. I know what I need to do. And they come up with a new thing. So that's the second level, giving some options, asking the client to pick from those options. And the third level is when if that is not helping me, or if I have an idea, a homework, a task that I know that is very useful for my client to take her out of the comfort zone or to break some resistance or to create new habits, anything that as a coach I think that is useful, but I know that my client is not going to come up with that idea because he's too crazy, too out of the comfort zone, or for whatever reason, then I use my third level. And my third level is to tell my client, okay, I have a challenge for you. Would you be able to do this? And I give them something with a challenge. And then my client, of course, can say, yes, I can commit to that. Although most of the cases, what they say is, oh, no, I don't think so. That's too extreme, or that's too out of my comfort zone. But then that creates the start of a negotiation. Okay, let's see what you cannot do this as I am presenting it, but what is the challenge that you could do? So define your own challenge along these lines. And they create something that is achievable and that is acceptable for me in terms of accountability and stretching the comfort zone as a coach. So it's helping the client, and then it's getting the commitment. We know that in coaching, I cannot accept from my client an answer that says, I will try. The word try is leaving a door open. It's leaving a door open to say, well, I couldn't try, or I tried, but it didn't work. So try is not a word that denotes commitment. I always tell my clients when they tell me, well, I'm going to try that. Okay, how do you change it so you can tell me I will do that instead of I will try that? Or I want to do this, or I will do it. So it's important to get that commitment. We also know in coaching that it's very important to get clear deliverables and deadlines. So how is the final product looks like? After you do that, what are we going to see? And when are you going to do it? And I always tell my clients that they need to put the client all the way with the back on the wall, because when they say, okay, I will do this next week, our next question is, okay, next week, what day of next week? Oh, I don't know, Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday, great. So are you going to do it Wednesday in the morning or in the afternoon? Oh, I don't know, let me check my calendar. Okay, Wednesday afternoon, okay, great. So Wednesday afternoon at 4, at 5, at 3, what is a good time for you to do this? So you need to push your clients to be very clear on what they are going to do and when they are going to do it, because that is what is increasing the commitment and the accountability for the client, because that's what you want when you are, that's one of the big benefits that you are bringing as a coach to the table. You are holding her accountable to do the actions that they need to do. So that's important in the closing. The next part in the closing, once we define the future actions, is what we call reinforced learning. And I always close my sessions with 3 questions. And actually, I tell my clients this upfront in my intake session. I tell them in the first session, you know what? Every session, every time we meet, we are going to have a structure. Everything that I am presenting to you in this webinar, not with this level of detail, but I tell my clients in the first session, every session is going to have a structure that I will follow every time we meet. I'm always going to ask you about your past commitments. Then you are going to define a goal for the session. We are going to work on that the majority of the time. And then at the end, I'm always going to help you define your future actions and then reinforce your learning. And I'm always going to reinforce your learning with 3 questions. What did you learn today? What was the most important learning today? And what are you going to do differently? So the first one is to ask your client, okay, what did you learn about yourself? What did you explore? What were the new findings? What were the insights? There are many ways to ask that, but keep your questions simple. But there are many ways to ask that. The idea is that your client starts listing, telling you all the things that he or she discovered in your session. Then the second question is, okay, what was the most important learning today? We go back to the principle in coaching of priorities and impact point. Okay, you told me maybe 3, 5, 7 things that you learned from today's session, but what was the most important? What is the one with most relevance? So they can reinforce in their mind that this was the most important from my session today. And then the last question is, okay, based on those discoveries, based on those learnings, or based on those insights, what are you going to do different? In some cases, they say, well, I will do the activities that I committed to, or I will do such and such. But in many cases, if you ask in the right question, in the right way, they are going to tell you different things. They're going to say, well, I'm going to change, I don't know, my mindset, my view, the way I treat people, the way I use my language, the way I do this or that. So you are, with this last question, reinforcing learning, but also taking them to the action that comes from that learning. So this is a very important section of your session. And after reinforcing learning, you want to close also with empowering rapport. But this is the moment before, and let me go back here a minute. Before going to the closing rapport, once I close with the 3 questions for the learning, you could say that usually, and I apologize that I didn't include it here in the slides, but my 4th question, or my next step before closing with rapport, is checking if the goal of the session was achieved or not. So my next question is something like, okay, client, well, 45 minutes ago, you told me that what you wanted to get out of this conversation is a good brainstorming for your final decision. Did we achieve that? Do you have your final brainstorming for the decision? Or maybe I said, dear client, you told me that at the beginning of the session that your goal for today was to have more clarity. Did we achieve that? Do you think that with the information that we covered today, you gained some clarity? Or maybe, dear client, you told me at the beginning of the session that you wanted to start exploring your fears or your limiting belief, or what do you think this is happening? Did we do a good job exploring that? Do you have a better understanding of that? So my question at the end is to check if the goal for the session was achieved or not. And if I did my question at the beginning, and then I focus all my mind and my effort as a coach to work on that idea, then most of the time at the end, my client is going to say, yes, we did it. We worked on that. We achieved that. I got insights on that. Yes, I got it. I like to use an analogy to explain this that I think is very effective. Imagine that you are not coaches. Imagine that you are dependent on a retail store that sells fabrics and maybe ribbons. So imagine a customer comes to the store. When a customer comes to the store, it's very common that if you are a salesperson in the store, you are going to say, good afternoon, what are you looking for today? How can I help you? It's the same question that we do at the beginning of the session. How can I help you today? Then the client is going to say, well, I'm looking for a ribbon. I need a ribbon. Okay, and do you need that for a gift? Do you need that for a dress? Do you need that for a special project, for art? I am asking questions to understand what exactly my client needs. And when my client says, well, I need a short ribbon, it's for wrapping a gift, and I need it in a blue that is shiny and that is maybe this width and this length or whatever. So the client is going to give me his specifications. Then as a dependent in that store, then I know where to go. I can take my client and say, okay, follow me. This is where we have what you're looking for. We take him to that aisle. They get what they need. They are satisfied and they go to pay to the register. And they will go to pay to the register. The person in the register, as they are collecting the money from the client, sometimes they ask, did you get what you wanted? That's exactly what we are doing with the session at the end. Did you get what you wanted? And the client says, yes, thank you. I got my blue ribbon for my gift, and I'm ready to go. Thank you. I'm a satisfied client. I gave you my money. I got my ribbon. I'm good to go. So it's the same thing with the session. Asking a client when he gets into the store, when he gets into the session, what do you want to take away from this today? And they're helping my client at the end saying, did you get it? Are you a satisfied client that are going home with what you wanted? Then that is going to create a very high impact in the client. So it's very important to check if the goal session defined for my client by my client was achieved with my help at the end of the session, right before we say bye with the report. So once I check that, then I move to the empowering final report. And the final report is basically let my client go with a good note, with a good sensation from the session. The same way that I create a comfortable space when we started, I want to create a comfortable space when we say goodbye. And the way to do that is to use some empowering phrases or empowering thoughts for my client. I have a couple of examples for you here. Like if I say, well, wow, great discoveries today. I'm sure you will make it happen. See you next time. Great, good work. That's one way of doing it. Another one is, well, great session. You're really moving forward with this goal. I'm happy for you. Looking forward to your future activities. See you. Or nice progress today. Great activities that you define, great insights. I'm looking forward to your results. They seem closer and closer. So it's closing with a good note, closing with a good phrase that will make your client feel empowered, feel that it was useful, that he got good, useful information, and that they can move along with working on their goals. So that's the structure. I'm going to, before we move to questions, I'm going to go back to the chart so you have again the full picture, and we make a summary of what we are recommending here. And it's, you need to establish rapport. Well, of course, we cover a couple of points before the session. But once you start the session is establishing the rapport, reviewing the previous commitments, define the conversation for the session, then do all your coaching the majority of the time. And when you have 10, 15 minutes left in your session, then help your client define the next actions, reinforce the learning with the three learning questions, and then check that you achieve what your client was looking for, that the product was delivered, that the goal for the session was delivered, and then close with empowering rapport to leave in a good note. So this is the structure that we recommend. I use it in each and every one of my sessions, so I'm used to that, and my notes for the session are based on that. Every coach has a different style for that. Some coaches ask their clients to take the notes, some coaches take their notes. My style is that I know that my clients are taking their own notes, but I also take notes from what they are saying. And in my notes, I always capture, I always have a section for the notes, and then a section at the end that says future activities, which I'm going to check for the next session, and then learning. And in learning, I have my answers for the 3 questions. What did they learn? What was the most important? What are you going to do different? And that's the way I keep a record or a file, let's say, for each of my clients. So I just always use them that way. So what do you need to do after your client? You say bye, your client goes. Then what are the things that you need to do? Well, in my case, what I do is I make sure that I have all my notes in the right place. Maybe I correct some typos or some grammar. I get them ready. I publish them for my clients, and they know that I take notes that they are going to have available. So I publish my notes for my clients in a tool that we use. And then if I try to follow immediately, in order not to leave pending items for me, I try to check if I made a commitment of sending the information on a book, or recommending a movie, or introduce my client to another person, or whatever things I committed during the session that I was going to help with. I try to send them right away, so I'm done with that session and that client until we meet again. So those are the things that you do at the end. Well, we have a very good time. I still have a little bit more than, we have like 15 minutes for some questions. So I'm going to check here if we have something in the question section. If not, you can raise your hand, and I guess Alexis can open the mic for you, or you can write your question in the question sections, and we go from there. I have a question here that says, how do coaches build clientele? Understanding the process is great. However, building clientele is a challenge. What's the magic to this process? Well, I agree. That's one of the most challenging parts when you get certified, is getting new clients. And it's very challenging. There is no magic. The way it's been working for our practice is, and it's no secret either, is that the main way to get new clients is word of mouth. We have done a lot of marketing. We try to have a beautiful website with information. We have a nice brochure. We have all the marketing things that you are supposed to do. We participate in some expos. We go to networking meetings and associations and all those things. But the truth is that in coaching and in many other services industries, the best clients come just from word of mouth, just from one telling another one that you are a good coach, that you do a great work, and referring that person to you. So it takes some time, and it's painful at the beginning, because at the beginning we have few clients, so it's less amount of people recommending. So but the more you work, and as you advance throughout the years, you have more clients recommending, and then you start creating that snowball effect. A couple of things that have worked for me, and I can share with you as a way to build your business. One of them is, make sure that you have, and again, depending on your market, because I work in the executive market. We don't do life coaching. We don't do career coaching, spiritual coaching. We have like a specialized as coaches in executive coaching. So because of that, for us has been very good, and especially for me has been very good to have a very good LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is a tool where you have your profile with all your expertise and your knowledge. But so one of my recommendations is, make sure that you have a very good LinkedIn profile, but make sure that you don't treat this LinkedIn profile as your resume, because that was the initial intention with LinkedIn. Everybody was uploading the resumes to find people, hire people, etc. But now it's not. Now it's a marketing tool. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is not a resume, but more like your personal website, where you first talk about your idea, your expertise, your vision for the market. What do you bring to the table? And structure the sections. LinkedIn is very flexible. You can change the order of the sections. You can include videos, you can include PowerPoints, you can include images. You can do a lot of stuff. It's like a mini website builder where you can create a lot of information around your profile. So if you have a great profile in LinkedIn, that is going to help. Some of my best clients today found me in LinkedIn, because they found me there. They found something that they liked from my profile. And it could be different aspects, whatever. In my case, in some cases, is that I'm bilingual and I coach in English and Spanish and Portuguese. In some other cases, is the experience, maybe because my background is in the IT industry. In some other cases, is because I have maybe certification assessments that they use or that they would like to use. So depending on what is in your profile, you're going to be attractive for certain audiences. Make sure that you have a very good LinkedIn profile that is promoting you, is your marketing tool. And the second thing that I would recommend to grow your business is make sure that you are participating with your offering in as many places as possible. So if it's amazing, but you won't believe me, but just right here in the international coaching community, you go to the profiles of the certified coaches, and many of them have not done anything with it. It's just the name and the email, not even updating the phone number, the website, the social media sites, maybe an introduction of what they do, the type of clients that they deal with. So make sure that when you have opportunities like that, you are part of the ICC directory of coaches. Make sure that you have a good profile there that is selling you. And if you belong to another coaching association, or if you belong to an industry association, make sure that your profiles there are selling tools for you. That's one thing that has worked for me. As coaches, many times we are subcontracted by other companies. Many of my clients are larger coaching companies that have hired me to help them with leadership development programs or with some executive coaching. So that's another good way to grow the business, because once you establish your reputation and your quality of work with one company, they will continue inviting you year after year with the same client or with different clients to do some coaching. So those are my best answers on the challenge. There's no magic, it's hard work, and I agree it's one of the most difficult things. I have another question here that says, what if you notice a client is not taking action, that they commit in the session but do not follow up with that commitment? What are the options in those cases? Well, as I said, when we were reviewing a task and activities, that might happen. Sometimes clients come back and say, I didn't do it, I didn't try. And the best way to break that cycle first is never, as I said in the presentation, never allow the client to define the homework or the commitment in the same way. Something needs to change. It needs to be in maybe a smaller scope, maybe it needs to be in a different place, in a different time, with a different approach, with a structure that reminds them. Change something, change things, because if it doesn't change, the probabilities of having the same broken record every session are very high. But if you change some things, then you increase the chances for the client to move forward. Now, if that still doesn't work, then you are clearly working with what we call a blockage, a roadblock. It could be a limiting belief, it could be a limited perspective, it could be a bad habit. Then I need as a coach to explore, okay, it's part of the learning or of not trying to do the homework that we were reviewing. What did you learn from not even trying? What did you learn from you? What are the fears? What are the blockages? What is preventing you from doing this? So let's explore that. And you need to keep coaching and finding what are the blockages, because if you don't remove those, that commitment is not going to happen. Now, let me go more extreme here. If that still doesn't work, because I cannot find with my client what are the blockages and still is not committing to move forward, then as a coach, it has happened very, very few times to me, but I have gone to the point to tell my client, you know what, we have been trying this homework in different ways for the last 4 or 5 sessions. And this is not changing. You are not moving forward. This is a critical thing that you need to do to achieve your goal, and it's not happening. So I am happy collecting my money every month, but I am not happy that you are not getting results and I am not getting results as a coach. So do you really want to move forward with that? Because if not, the truth is, I don't think I'm helping you. And it might be your blockages. It might be that I'm not the right coach for you, or it might be that we are not defining the goal in the right way. But we need to find what it is and change it. Otherwise, it's not good for you. It's not good for me. Coach means goals and coach means results. I remember when I got certified, my teacher told me, no goals, no coaching, no actions on results, no coaching. That's no coaching. So you need to really make that happen. I hope that answered your question, Rafael. Anyone else? We have like 5 minutes. Any other questions that you want to explore or doubts on the system that I just presented?
There don't seem to be any hands risen or any more questions or comments. Okay, yes. No, there's nothing else.
Okay, then what I would invite you to do, as I do in my sessions, is what about if you make some notes from your learnings for today's webinar? So in the last hour, what did you learn today? What did you learn from this idea of having a coaching structure for maximum impact? What are the things that you learned? And maybe make a couple of notes on what was the most important from what you learned. And then make a note of what are you going to do differently now that you have this information or from the learnings that you have today. And will you write your ideas down on these 3 questions? I'm going to answer another question here. It says, where can I find a list of coaching companies like those that you mentioned you sometimes work with? Well, you can go to your browser and just Google coaching companies or large coaching companies, and you might find some companies in your area that are working with several coaches, that they are not a single coach working alone. They are companies where they have maybe 5, 10 coaches, or they subcontract other coaches for their projects. Once you find them, then you can approach the company and say, hey, I'm a certified coach. I have this experience. This is my presentation. If you have projects, I would like to be included in those projects. I would like to collaborate with you. I can be subcontracted for those projects. So that's one way of doing it. The other one is just go to your local coaching associations, participate in associations, and you will find a lot of people that are working on their own, but you can find also companies that have more like larger coaching companies. Then I have another question that says, is coaching losing credibility in the last years? I don't think so. I think coaching, from my perspective and the way our business is evolving, I think coaching is gaining credibility. We still have the same problem that we have had for many, many years, that the best enemy of our coaching is all those people that are calling themselves coaches and they didn't get certified. They don't know how to do it. They are maybe consultants, advisors, trainers, and they call themselves coaches. So that is creating a lot of confusion in the market. And I agree that that's confusing clients, but I don't think that makes them lose credibility in coaching. I always ask my first-time clients, have you been coached before? Yes. So if they say no, okay, let me tell you what coaching is and what coaching is not. So I get rid of those confusions. And if the client says, yes, I have been coached, and I ask, okay, what was your experience? Tell me about the way they used to coach you. And if I hear that the stories are about good coaching techniques, I said, okay, great, then you know what is this about. But if I hear stories about, oh, well, I have a guy that was telling me what to do and bringing me some tools and giving me advice, and say, well, then sorry, that was not coaching. That was an advisor, that was a consultant. Let me tell you what coaching is about. So I think it's very important to clarify that for our clients very early in the process. But my experience is that coaching is gaining credibility more than losing credibility, because before it was an investment, and at least in my market, in executives, in companies, they were doing this only for a very few people. And more they are including coaching for more managers, more leaders, more people participating in emerging leaders programs, in leadership development programs. So coaching in many organizations is being adopted as a more available thing for the managers and executives. And I think that's a result that the coaching gaining credibility. Then it says, executives, I have another question that says, executives and HR responsible do not want to invest time to understand that coaching is not consulting or mentoring. How to deal with this constant reality? Well, I guess I answered a little bit of that in my previous answer. It's about asking if they know what is and what is not, or what were their previous experiences, and explaining it. I also make very sure that in my presentations, in my profiles, in my brochures, I am very clear of what is and what is not. And it's a process. It's something that we have as a problem in the market. I think that since coaching is so effective and so good, many people is going to continue to use that word just for marketing purposes without being really coaches. And it's something that we are going to keep facing. But we just need to keep educating our customers. And if they don't want to invest time to understand that it's not consulting or what coaching is, well, they are not willing to invest time in the process anyway. So my personal view is I wouldn't worry much about a company that is not willing to spend the time to understand what it is. I will move to the next one. Okay. Well, here you have all my information, just in case you have remaining questions or you want to get in touch. You have my email, you have my website, you have also my LinkedIn profile, so you can go and see as an example. It's not perfect. I still want to improve some things, but you can see an example of a LinkedIn profile. And also you have our Twitter, Facebook accounts where we sometimes we mention good movies, good books, recommendations on coaching. And also we have a YouTube channel. And if you go to our website, www.icscoach.com, a couple of months ago, I started something that I call a video blog. Now you can see a video blog in Spanish and in English. And in both cases, what I'm doing is that every week I am posting a 3-minute video with some useful information and a coaching concept or leadership concept. It's just 3 minutes. It's a video blog that we call It Is All in Your Mind. And you can see just in less than 3 minutes, a good idea about coaching. So I hope you visit our website and see the video blog there. Let's see. Thanks. Somebody wrote the takeaway here. Thank you, Rafael. It says, I will explore ways to enhance my note-taking in a way that can aid in the follow-up on actions and commitments. That's a good one. I do that a lot. I take my notes as a reminder for me of the actions, but also as a reminder for my client. And I tell them always, you know what, I'm going to be taking some notes so they don't think that I'm doing something else. I will be taking some notes and I will send them to you at the end of the session. And for me, that works very good. Okay, well, seems that we are at the end of our time. So thank you so much for coming to the webinar. I enjoyed it a lot. This is something that has been very useful in my business as a coach. And I hope this helps you also with your business to grow it and to be more effective with your client. The more you are effective with your clients and the more you really impact the results and the way they are improving things, the more they are going to recommend you and create more business for you. So thank you.
Excellent, excellent, great. Thank you very much, Guillermo. It was a great topic. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll be seeing you in our upcoming courses and webinars. Take care and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.